Dampo, and welcome to Dawai Kudroen. After a long break after the elections, we are bringing you Dawai Kudroen again. And tonight I have Honorable Chairperson of National Council, His Excellency Sonam Kinga. Sir, thank you so much for your time. First question would be, now that you have served as Member of Parliament in the National Council for last 5 years, and you have served as a Deputy Chairperson as well. Do you see a difference in your role now, assuming the post of Honorable Chairperson, and the past 5 years as a Member of Parliament, like any other members? Any striking difference that you would find yourself? But for somebody like us, the difference that we could see is now you will not be able to present your views and your opinions as you used to do 5 years before.
Thank you, Dawa, and a very good evening to all the viewers of this program, which is being resumed after a certain break, and I'm privileged to be your first guest tonight. Yes, I had a variety of experience serving as the member as well as the Deputy Chairperson of the National Council. Having been entrusted with the responsibility of leading these very important institutions, I certainly feel a striking difference in terms of the enormous responsibility and therefore the burden of shouldering this important responsibility. Yet I take confidence from the fact that there is a fine balance of 14 new members and 11 former members, which gives a mix of continuity of experience and institutional memory, as well as injection of fresh perspectives and ideas. Many do echo the view that you just said of how I may not be in a position to put forth arguments, raise issues, having to preside over the sessions. However, I think this is a misplaced conception. I, as a representative of the people, will have the opportunity as well as the enthusiasm to keep raising issues through multiple channels that are available in our parliamentary practice.
So you mentioned about 14 new members and 11 old members. Do you observe, or within this short period of time, have you been observing a good synergy between these old and new groups? Because in many cases, we have been seeing a clash of ego between new and the old. Old would think that they are seniors. New ones would believe that they are also elected by the people, like any one of them. So why should we take a backseat? This kind of clash of egos. Do you see that?
I think it is a matter of perception. The National Council is a small institution of 25 members where something like a clash of ego should not have any place at all. This is a house of review where our primary responsibility is to mediate and negotiate differences. The issue is not about whether synergies are being observed or not. I think a primary challenge for me as the privileged chairperson at the moment is to develop and promote synergies. And in fact, in the last 4 months or so, we have engaged ourselves, whether it be in terms of our engagement with formal business of the National Council, or whether through opportunities of social interaction, we have been building this synergy, not just between former members who have the opportunity to serve again and the new members who have been elected, but also with other staff of our secretariat, because in the National Council we are very keen on developing a sense of community among ourselves. Therefore, clash of egos should not have any place in it.
Yes, Your Excellency, to many people or many electorates, now it's evident that I've heard so many people say that we have a very young, dynamic group of National Council members this time around. And many appreciated the choice made by the people of different constituencies, and that is placed on records through different media and different outlets. Having said so, people's expectation now, must have really gone up vis-a-vis the expectations they had during 2008 elections. What do you think? Challenges ahead? Will you be able to live up to the expectations of our people?
The dynamism of the institution is certainly fueled by the youthness and the freshness of people in it, and certainly the National Council will have that resource at its disposal. His Majesty the King has been very gracious enough to command during our Dakin ceremony that the previous National Council has set very good standard, and therefore it is incumbent upon the present members to excel. Expectations are high, and that is good, because the expectations of the people and the standards that they want us to achieve naturally and rightly so gives us both the motivation as well as the challenge that we need to be always mindful of. We know that there are many national issues and challenges ahead. As a team, we will be working together, not just among ourselves, but also with the National Assembly and the Lange Junso, as well as with other important institutions in this country, to be able to address these challenges. We should always remain optimistic. We will always be motivated, and under the wise leadership of His Majesty the King, and with the commitment of all the elected representatives, whom I have no doubt will have the commitment to fulfill their responsibilities, we will endeavour to achieve them.
Yes. Your Excellency, now talking about the entitlements, talking about the responsibilities, I, for one, would be seen as having some vested interest to put this question to you. But then, in the interest of the larger good, I think one question that many would ask is regarding the entitlements of our members of Parliament. Firstly, looking at the office setup, may not be really cozy, but need to have a comfortable office to work, the kind of atmosphere that one enjoys around, to deliver what is expected from one to be delivered, and other entitlements that would draw more and more good people to the fray. What do you think, La? Will this talk of entitlement continue? Because in 2008, when you discussed about this Entitlement Act, there were lots of criticism from the public saying, now we have elected them and they have now started talking about their entitlements as one of the first issues. So this time, what do you think?
I think one of the striking thing that I noticed, now I think I come back to your previous question, one of the striking thing I noticed this time around is that there is hardly any talk about entitlements. I was pleasantly surprised that the present set of National Council members immediately started talking about this particular issue from that constituency, this particular person having raised this issue, what are the institutions and mechanisms in places, what are the precedents that the previous National Council has set to address this particular concerns, how do we organize about going back to our constituencies and interacting with the people, what are the procedures in place to introduce new bills and address them. So this sort of perspective and thinking has dominated the present National Council, and I think the discourse on entitlements have not at all taken a priority at the moment.
Okay. So happy with what they are already receiving?
I think especially for the new members, when they came in, they were fairly informed of what their entitlement are, because they have in the last 5 years seen and known what the entitlements and the responsibilities as well as the privileges of the MPs are. So I think knowing that, they have come in, and I think the sort of primacy of this discourse having not taken place is a testimony of the fact that their concerns and engagements are elsewhere at the moment, which is very good.
Yes. Your Excellency, now in our Jungle session, you mentioned about the first session that will be mostly deliberating on the 11th 5-year plan. That will be the topmost or the prior agenda that will be deliberated. But apart from that, any important agenda? Of course, whatever you're going to deliberate will be important, but some key areas that you would like to deliberate on during the first session from National Council members' side.
The first session of the second parliament most likely would not be an extended session, primarily owing to the compulsion and indeed the rightful need to pass the 11th five-year plan and the budget which the government would table in the National Assembly first and then come to the National Council. However, in the National Council, knowing that the session would certainly be a brief one and then we would look forward to a more extended session in the second session of the second parliament, we have, however, identified a few key issues that we need to take up. So, for example, there are certain things that are a convention we must do annually. For example, we would have to deliberate on the Anti-Corruption Commission's annual report, and that is a key document in order to address corruption and enhance good governance in the country. The National Council is also looking at the issue of vandalism of sacred artifacts, and one of these was in the news, I think, today.
Yes.
The National Council will also be looking at a few key reports, and I would not want to elaborate on them at the moment because the committees are engaged in discussing them, and the committees would then finalize whether would refer to the plenary sitting of the National Council as to whether those particular issues we are looking at has to be tabled in the session or not. So I would not like to preempt the discussion at the moment, but certainly we will have the 11th five-year plan, the budget, which are a priority. Then we'll have a few important issues, and we'll also have a few questions and answers sessions with the government. You know that the question hour is a vital instrument for the parliament to conduct its public review, which is also its primary mandate. So the short session will be an intense one.
Your Excellency, as said earlier, as asked earlier in our conversation, do you expect any development of agendas while you visit your constituency? Because some people might be waiting for your visits so that they can have some serious agenda settings for you.
Constituency visit at the moment for the National Council members is being considered. Some of the members would go for a constituency visit, although this visit would be a very short one because in the first or second week of September, the Parliament would most likely convene. This is not the best of season to go for a constituency visit, primarily because of the rainy season and the intense farm works that are going on. However, some members of Parliament are choosing to go owing to various exigencies. Some members are choosing to go right after the session because the session would be a short one, and either at the end of September or after October, members would be visiting their constituencies. Some of us who would be taking a quick visit would use the opportunity to seek the concerns of the people, some of which may be addressed at the local level, some of which may be addressed by the Dzongkhag administration, but some which we may feel need the attention of the Parliament and that of the government. In case such issues are raised, certainly it is our duty as elected representative to pay heed to these issues. Not necessarily that some of the issues may have to be tabled as an agenda of the formal sitting. There could be issues that may be included in the agenda, but there could also be issues that could be directly dealt with by engaging in a discussion with the respective ministries, secretaries, directors, or relevant officials and agencies.
Your Excellency, one of the roles that people might expect you to play during your short visit to your constituency would be to create some sort of harmony within the society, because we all know that because of the elections, there clearly seemed to be some rift between some families, communities, villages, or at individual levels as well. So would you be playing that role, not necessarily to negotiate or come up with negotiations, but at least to convince them that this is a normal process, and if you are not going to take it as lightly as it should be, then before the wound that is already there is cured, you are already going for the next election then. So things are never going to settle. So do you see that, do you see yourself playing that role? Could be anybody's role or may not be anybody's role.
Let us not assume that dispute, confrontations, differences happen only during time of elections. In fact, differences and disputes are part of every society as much as it is they are a part of Bhutanese society. However, during election time, they tend to get enhanced and more visible and more experienced, as we did in the last election as well as in the 2008 elections. Although these are, like it or not, part of the electoral process, the commitment that each of us as a citizen of this small country owe is to heal any division as soon as possible. People like myself, people like yourself, or for that matter anyone in our society, must take the responsibility all the time in our humble ways to heal wounds or to close the gaps, while we also remain aware and accommodating to the fact that democratic polity must necessarily provide space for expression of different views and opinions, and that they can be mediated. Certainly during my brief constituency visit to the few Georgs and communities that I would be able to visit, this is the first plea that I'm going to make to the people, that if there is any among them in the communities where divisions have happened because of partisan reasons, that this should be immediately left behind. And today what we have is the government of the people of Bhutan, an opposition of the people of Bhutan, a parliament that represents the entire people of Bhutan, and not a government, an opposition, and a parliament that is selectively representative, that is unhealthy. So that will definitely be one of the key things that members who are visiting the constituencies would appeal.
In line with this, I know I'm repeating what we have already discussed in our Zonka session, but I think it's important that we bring up this issue again. In line with this, what do you think about the role that is being played by social media these days? During the elections, after the elections, many believe that things would die down on its own because elections are over and now we have every reason to rejoice, or some might not be as happy as they should be, but then this is how things go on. Keeping aside all this, social media never seems to cease in its role. The personal attacks that you see, lots of things being written from the comfort of anonymity, all sorts of unhealthy debates going on. Do you think this will be good for the... I know this is part and parcel of democratic process, but is it a healthy one?
Today when we talk of social media, we largely talk of internet presence such as Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Social media has always been there in Bhutan in the form of gossips, conversations. It is except that due to technology and new developments, social media get reformulated, and today the presence because of the internet is very strong. There will always be new and different actors as we go on. It may be social media today, it may be something else tomorrow. I think as a small national society, a national family with His Majesty at the helm, we owe it to ourselves that the harmony of the society is never compromised, and that when it is challenged, we must all jump in reclaiming that possibly challenged harmony. We have looked at social media in this particular election, and perhaps even in 2008, from an angle that saw through a partisan lens. Yes, because of the privilege of remaining anonymous, people, or rather should we say actors, have been asserting themselves in ways and means that are viewed differently by different people. Some see such an assertion transcending any bounds of decency and ethics and morality as part of the democratic process, while some see this as being totally insensitive sometimes to our most cherished institutions that hold this small, diverse country together as a family. Having said that, social media is not going to disappear. It is, again, when I say social media, I'm thinking not just Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, I'm thinking anything else. Again, for us as a small society, and that is one thing we can never ever forget, the idea of this smallness and the vulnerability of our small society must be embedded in the consciousness of every single Bhutanese citizen. Therefore, while we try to exercise our self-restraint, while we also express our concerns, grievances, reservations, I think we must exercise the best of judgments in the way we use it. However, that alone cannot impose or set a decency about how we conduct in that very amorphous public space. Therefore, the election commission, as we know, have come up with the social media rules. I think we need to think ahead. We need to, whether it is the parliament, the local government, the media, this bureaucracy, the civil society, corporate, private organization, all of us as members of national society need to think how best we can take advantage of this very important resources, and yet take a collective responsibility when there is an onslaught on our cherished democratic institutions, our cherished institutions, and whether the way we address this is through legal means, through education, through advocacy, is something that we must give highest of the priorities and not sideline.
So, Your Excellency, you feel that letting things happen as it is won't be a good choice or won't be a good practice?
I think letting or not letting is not a choice we have. Social media is a space where different actors will act in the way they want under the garb of anonymity. Remember way back in 1999 when His Majesty the Fourth Drugyalpo, during the coronation Silver Jubilee celebration, commanded in Changling Methang that internet being is introduced and that we must use it responsibility. That is a timeless wisdom. It is a statement that we need to reflect upon, and therefore just in the span of about 12-13 years, we cannot afford to forget that. That was a conscience that we must fall back upon. So letting or not letting is not an option. The fact is, how do we continually be imaginative enough, take initiative, that we are able to deal with both the opportunities social media provides as well as the challenges that it poses to us.
Okay. Finally, can we have healthy debates to promote our democratic culture, assuming that most of the writers in these online forums and social media, or most of the people who raise their voices through the social media, are believed to be educated? Now, can we have healthy debates rather than initiating personal attacks, or rather than debating based on personalities? Can we have debates based on issues? This is one area that we would like to promote all the time. Can we have issue-based debate rather than personality-based debate?
In a democracy, discourse is a key element of engaging various actors, various people, various institutions. The discourse that happens in the social media can be an extension of that debate in our national polity. What is a healthy debate? Who decides what is a healthy debate? What are the benchmarks that we use to label a certain discourse or debate as healthy? While we need not necessarily concern ourselves with this, just by the use of our imagination, common sense, I think we know when a debate is healthy or not. The question you ask is a healthy debate possible? It is not only possible, healthy debate is happening. The only issue is whether a healthy debate based on issues or whether an unhealthy debate based on character assassination and personal attacks, which dominates the space more. And I think right now all of us know which dominates. But as you said, people who write on social media have a fair degree of literacy, have a fair degree of education, and I think that it is incumbent upon all of us to be able to shed our leanings based on personal association and commit our democracy to a discourse where we would largely agree that it is healthy and issue-based. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Your Excellency, thank you so much for your time. With this, we come to the end of Dawai Kudroen. Until we bring you next edition of Dawai Kudroen, our guest for the next week is not yet confirmed. Once we confirm it, we'll let you know as soon as possible. And we are trying to come up with a process whereby if you have any questions for a particular guest, we might create some forums to let you send in or get us your questions or your views so that we can ask the guests here. Thank you so much for watching Dawai Kudroen, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.